And a pleasant good afternoon to you from the KXAN Live studios. I'm your host, Billy Gates, and this is, of course, the Horns Report, where we talk about all things UT athletics. And with me this week, it's not Roger, but it's the next best thing. It's Noah Gross, our KXAN weekend anchor and reporter. And Noah, we've got a lot to talk about today. Mainly women's basketball and baseball today. So
busy season for Texas.
Yeah, a lot going on. So we're going to start with the women's basketball team. Just moved up to number 5 in the Associated Press poll. Moved up 2 spots from 7 after a perfect 3-0 week. Much to Noah's dismay with that first win they got over his Maryland Terrapins. In a big way.
I was going to say, by a lot.
Yeah, big way. 89-51 at the Coretta Scott King Classic on January 20th. They follow that up with 2 close wins in the SEC play over Tennessee, 17th ranked Tennessee, 80-76 at Moody Center on the 23rd, and then most recently the Sunday victory over Ole Miss on the road, 61-58. Noah, before we get to us yakking about this, let's hear from the coach Vic Schaefer after the Mississippi game.
Like you said, you're down 8 with what? Less than 5. Yeah, less than 5, and you're executing defensively. You're coming down and executing offensively. Obviously, Booker makes a big shot. Taylor was a monster all day, and just competing. I mean, that's what college athletics is all about, y'all, is just having the intestinal fortitude to fight and compete. When things don't go good, not losing your mind, not losing your poise, you got to have poise in the noise. And I thought today we showed incredible poise in the noise. And then as the score got tighter and tighter, they got a little tighter on the other end. And, we outscored them 33-26 in the second half. And we knew we didn't play very well the first half. We were still only down 4. But I just couldn't be more proud of these kids.
Kind of in classic Vic fashion, he always ends kind of his statements as, I'm always proud of these kids. But it was quite a win for them. Down 8 with about 5 minutes to go on the road in the SEC. It doesn't matter where you play in the SEC, Noah. That's a pretty good win.
Yeah, I was kind of evaluating the SEC on the women's side. It's, top heavy in the sense of South Carolina and LSU are the heavyweights of all heavyweights, and they had an entertaining bout this weekend where, of course, the Gamecocks came out on top. And then Texas, kind of in that next tier. We'll see if they can get to that first tier. Didn't go well the first time they faced South Carolina. When they get both those teams at home, though, I believe both in February, South Carolina and LSU. That'll be interesting. I know LSU's on the February 16th, day after or week after Super Bowl Sunday. But there's so many good teams in the SEC. I would say the depth is stronger than the Big 12. The Big 12 had some pretty good teams. Like, there were some real battles the last couple of years with the Texas women's team and teams like Kansas State, Iowa State. Think about the Big 12 championship a couple years ago against Iowa State. So there were some really tough games. But the SEC, I mean, home against Tennessee, I think Texas was like a 15-point favorite in that game. And
that's a huge number. That's
huge number.
Nuts.
And then Texas ends up winning, which is still a good win. Tennessee was a top 20 team at the time. So, SEC is legit. Ole Miss was playing one heck of a game a day ago as well.
They were playing about as well as they could have to hold off Texas for that long. Yeah. But they couldn't hold off Taylor Jones. 24 points, 6 rebounds. She did most of her damage there in the second half of that game.
Where did she transfer from?
She transferred from Oregon State, Noah. Yeah. Go Beavers. Let's go. But she had a tremendous game. That was her second consecutive game of 20 points or more. And they couldn't stop her inside, so they fouled her, and then she just went to the free throw line and sunk 10 of 11 foul shots. So just a great night from your big, because a lot of bigs have that reputation of they can't shoot foul shots, so let's just hack them and send them to the line. Well, Taylor made them pay.
Yeah, a couple really big games in a row, especially down the stretch where, that's one thing I'm keeping my eye on with this Texas team. Madison Booker's been the go-to player down the stretch. She hit really the same big shot against Tennessee as she did against Ole Miss. It was the game winner against Tennessee for all intents and purposes. Yeah. And then Ole Miss it was as well. But they were feeding Taylor Jones a lot before that, especially early in the fourth quarter. But something on Texas's offense, they would like somebody different. Shea Holly's never been a big shot creator, but when she's on, she can make some shots. I would like to see Rory Harmon be a little bit more aggressive. Looking at the box score, but it looks like she played 40 minutes.
Yeah, she never came out, played the whole thing.
And when she plays 40 minutes, that's like 60 for somebody else because she is battling full court press. She is a warrior on there. So I understand her maybe not being full throttle 100% every single time on offense and having a benefit of a Madison Booker there. But when Booker was getting a lot thrown her way defensively, especially a day ago late against Ole Miss, it would be really nice to have that other aggressive shot creating kind of option in Rory Harmon, who's still working her way back from the ACL tear as well.
You mentioned that injury. Before that injury last season, she was having a tremendous offensive season. I mean, the season before that, it was still kind of like this. She'd have the occasional game. She'd score 10, 12 points. Last season, before that injury, she was hitting pull-up jump shots. She was hitting outside shots from the three-point line. Like, she was doing it all offensively. And then this season, it's sort of like the same thing where I mean, she shot 3 for 10 this game, 8 points, 7 assists though, 4 rebounds. So I mean, that's still kind of a stat stuffing line for a 5-6 point guard.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully as we get into the SEC season a little bit more, as we get toward tournament time, maybe Rory starts to ramp up that offense and kind of give Texas that third kind of scoring option behind Madison Booker and Taylor Jones. And then you can't not mention Booker's clutch jump shots, both those games. About the same shot, about a 15, 16-foot elbow jumper from the left side. I mean, she's going to make money in the WNBA just by doing that shot. And along with everything else she does.
Yeah, and she had a double-double as well. So more of a small forward kind of game for her. I know she's positionless in today's basketball world on both the women's and men's side. But yeah, she's been outstanding and a pretty cool game for her growing up a couple miles from Oxford as well in Mississippi. I know her mom was in the stands watching her. They showed that on ESPN. So cool day for her. But yeah, I was interested to see the press conference if they lost and because
I don't think Vic would have been so good.
Yes, because it's 3 games in 7 days, and you're going from New Jersey to Austin to Mississippi. That's not easy.
Yeah.
A lot of teams didn't play on Monday, so it's a lot. And for them to go 3-0, I was ready for the excuses, and they would have been pretty good excuses. But that's an impressive week.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, switching over to the men's side, they had a couple games last week, won them both in SEC play. 61-53 over Missouri. That's a ranked win for them. And then the big one on Saturday on the 25th, they're down 22 points to Texas A&M. It looked like the Aggies were going to run away with this thing in Moody Center. Like the first half was pretty bad for the Longhorns. Although A&M, they were shooting out of their minds from 3-point range there in the first half. But the Longhorns, they steady second half, and they came back and they won that thing 70-69, the biggest comeback in Moody Center history, 22 points, and it was insane to watch that. No, like I was there at Moody taking the game in, and it was like they got within 10, and you're like, wow, they might actually be able to do this thing. They get within 5, wow, they're gonna do it, and then Tremont Mark hits that layup there with about 4 seconds left, and they end up winning this thing. It was quite the scene at Moody Center.
The Texas players and Rodney Terry spoke post-game, and were largely saying the difference in the first half and the second half is, just A&M was making shots in the first half and they weren't in the second half, and then Texas started to make shots in the second half that they weren't in the first half, that's true. But to attribute that solely as the reason this game changed is wrong. I mean, Texas played so much more aggressively and confident.
Yeah.
Trey Johnson, we got some ground level video from the game, shot from one of our sister stations, and it's after the shot goes in, you shoot the video of the guy who just scored. And Trey Johnson has this look in his eyes, like that entire second half, like a man possessed.
Yeah.
After that 3 where he got the feed from Jason Kent in the final minute to cut it to 1, he just starts roaring. And, he was unbelievable that second half. So Texas just played so much more aggressive. And, they made shots, and A&M didn't make a ton of shots. But the mentality switch at halftime was unbelievable. And Rodney Terry talked about, they kind of heard it at halftime, and the players were talking amongst themselves. They were frustrated. I mean, you talked about the mood at the end of the game.
Yeah.
It was awkward for me just watching on TV. You could kind of sense it in the first half when A&M was just running away with it.
I mean, I couldn't imagine the mood at halftime because
probably not good.
It's one of those things where, like, yeah, they're making shots, but it's still frustrating. Texas A&M, they're not a good three-point shooting team. They went into the game shooting barely above 30%. They end the game shooting, 52%, 12 of 23 from three-point range. They shot a little bit better in that first half, but, I mean, they shot almost as well in the second half. So it's like one of those things where, like, yeah, like they're knocking down shots, but they also made a much better commitment, Texas did, to the defensive end in the second half, and Trey Johnson just decided he was going to take the game over.
He was unbelievable.
He finishes with 30 points, 24 of those in the second half, 10 for 10 from the foul line, all in the second half. And Rodney Terry said it in the postgame, like they expect him to be one and done and go to the league next year. So fans, you better enjoy Trey Johnson while you can, because he's going to be playing professionally next season. But
it basically is now.
I mean, sure. I mean, if you want to get technical, I guess.
Professional, you're making some money.
But
he is.
But yeah, I mean, it was a great win for Texas, even though, even with that bad first half, like they turned on the second half, and like that's one of those wins that, like we were thinking like 7-8 SEC wins should get them into the tournament, maybe.
Yeah.
And when you can steal a win like that against one of the better teams in the conference, that's gonna light up the committee's eyes and be like, okay, maybe they are good enough to be in the field.
Yeah, a couple things on that front. One, schedule lightens up a little bit. It's never easy in the SEC, but that first 5 games for them was just brutal.
That was rough.
Yeah, so it was, a lot of ranked teams, a lot on the road as well. So gets a bit easier, some home games, and then some LSUs of the world in there as well. Texas needs Arthur Kaluma back.
Yeah,
obviously, I don't know the Kendall Weaver situation, but Kaluma probably seems closer to returning than Weaver just because he had played in the Missouri game and was very effective in that game as well. And he's just such an alpha on the court, and Texas needs that so much. Right. So, it was great for Texas that they could win without him and Weaver as well, two of their main, 5-6 guys.
Mm-hmm.
But they need, obviously, it'd be great to have both of them back, but if they could get Kaluma back, I think they'll be able to tread water enough because, not having him on either side of the ball is very tough to deal with.
Yeah, no, they're going to need him for sure, but they were able to manage without him there at Texas A&M. That was pretty wild. So this week, the men's team, they've got Ole Miss coming up on Wednesday. That's at Oxford, Mississippi. They're going to see old friend Chris Beard, who is the head coach for the Rebels. And then Saturday, they're still on the road in Baton Rouge against LSU. So Two roadies this week, nothing at Moody Center for the men's team. And I'm switching over to spring sports here in Texas. Baseball and softball get going here early part of February. They just started their practices. We'll start with baseball first. We had a chance to talk with first-year head coach Jim Schlossnagle, who came over from A&M. Everybody knows that story, right? So we had a chance to catch up with him before their first day of official practice last Friday. So here is Coach Schlossnagle on this year's team in like a summary form.
The makeup of the older players is awesome. Rylan Galvan, Schussler, Max Ballou, Dre Duplantier, Jalen Flores, and there's more, but these guys they're super hungry. They want to, whenever they leave Texas, they want to leave it, whether it be graduation or the draft, they want to leave it on a high note. They understand what the standard is. And so just an awesome core group. That's Coach Pierce did an awesome job having those guys ready and having them here. It's very similar to my first team at A&M. Very, very similar. Some kids that, they hadn't had a great year the year before, but, kind of that new coach honeymoon period, super hungry. And that team turned out pretty solid year. So, praying for that.
So there's Coach Schlossnagle about this year's team. Basically, the makeup of the older guys is what he really loves. The guys that are left over from the days of Coach David Pierce, who is now an assistant to the head coach at Texas State. Mm-hmm. So good for Coach Pierce for being able to stick around the area. I always liked him. But what Schlossnagle was saying is that this older group that's going to lead this team offensively, Max Ballou, Jalen Flores, he probably should have thrown Will Gasparino in there too. But those guys that are coming back, Kemble Schuessler, another guy, there's going to be no shortage of offense for this team. Like, this lineup is going to hit. The issue last season was the pitching. 4.91 ERA last year, the worst it's been in the past decade at Texas. Walks were up, strikeouts were down, and that's not a winning formula from the mound. Noah, you and I, we both know that.
Yeah, Texas is just, I'm sure there's a lot of quality in as far as their arms heading into the season, but they're throwing a lot of quantity at it as well. Added a lot in the portal, guys from a number of different programs and different levels as well. So that's going to be really interesting. And I know they start in Arlington with that series where they've struggled in years past.
What is it about Globe Life Field that just zaps them?
Yeah,
like,
so
it's weird.
It's that, and then they come home for, or then they go to Vegas, I believe. No, okay,
Vegas is later in the season.
Yes, but it's a lot of pretty good opponents before SEC play where they're going to see what they have pitching wise. I'm very confident in their offense, but it's a lot about these Texas pitchers, and that was their. I mean, they put up an incredible fight last season down in the College Station Regional with the amount of pitching they had, almost beating Texas A&M.
The game close, 4-2 in 11 innings.
Yeah,
that was a wild game. Yeah. But Schlossnagle was saying that they're going to have 6 or 7 guys that are going to be able to stretch out, get to that 70, 75 pitch mark here early on. And then, outside of a couple guys, he mentioned one of the transfers you talked about, Jared Spencer, a lefty out of Indiana State. He's probably going to be in the mix for a starting rotation role.
A lot of Sycamores coming to the Longhorns.
It's a weird pipeline, isn't it?
Jason Kent, Julian Larry, Spencer, probably more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, hey, if you don't like Terre Haute, Indiana, come to Austin, Texas, I guess. You talked about Luke Harrison as well, another lefty who didn't pitch. I don't think he pitched last year, but he wasn't that effective. He was coming off of a surgery the year before. So hopefully he's able to get back into form. Schlossnagle said he was throwing strikes here in fall ball, and then all the workouts leading up to it with new pitching coach Max Weiner, who's a former Seattle Mariners coach. So let's go. I like the sound of that. And then after that, he just sort of shrugged his shoulders. He was like, it's a wide open competition. So it'll be interesting to see who they're going to roll out there February 14th against Louisville up at Arlington, Texas, Globe Life Field. And then they take on Ole Miss, which is not a conference game. That's just a previously scheduled game when they weren't part of the SEC. So they got Louisville, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State up at Globe Life Field in the Shriners Children's College Showdown. Open the season at the Dish February 18th with a single game against Houston. And then their home opening series February 21 through 23 against Ivy League powerhouse Dartmouth.
Yep.
And I use the term powerhouse kind of loosely.
Kind of.
But and then they go to Las Vegas. As you mentioned, Noah, that's February 28th through March 2nd. And in the middle of those 3-game set, they're going to play old friend Texas Tech, and that's always fun.
Yeah, I'm sure Tech has had that one circled for a long time.
Yep. It's always fun when Texas and Texas Tech really played anything. Like, they could play in, horseshoes or cornhole or something, and there'd probably be a fight.
Yeah, of course.
Of some kind. I remember at a basketball game 2 years ago, I believe, a Longhorns fan and a Red Raiders fan both got kicked out for... they weren't really, throwing hands at each other. I don't think anyone landed a punch. It was more just like a pushing kind of match, but it gets intense out there, man.
As long as one from each fan base got tossed in, it was an equitable situation.
Yeah, they were both let out of there. Yeah, but the things you see. Anyway, before we end it here, I want to mention the softball team. They get their season going very soon, and they just posted their schedule a couple days ago.
Yeah, it was
they start the season ranked number 1 in the ESPN USA softball preseason poll, and they have a very interesting start to their season.
Always do.
So they've got double headers February 7, 8, 9 on the road, but they're all in different places against different teams.
Yeah.
Like what? Like they go to Lafayette, Louisiana, February 7th. They take on Longwood and the host Raging Cajuns. Get on the bus, drive back to Beaumont, Texas, to take on St. John's and Lamar, February 8th. Then they drive further back into Texas to Huntsville
Nice.
to take on Tulsa and Sam Houston.
It's fun.
6 games, 3 days, 3 different places.
Why not, man?
3 very different places. It's wild. And of course, you've been mentioning this ever since the schedule came out, Noah. Maryland softball, they come to town Friday, the February 14th, and they stay the whole weekend and play. So you get to see your Terps softball team play. How much did you cover the Terps softball team when you were in college?
Pretty good amount. I mean, we covered.
Are you lying to me?
No, we covered every single sport. I mean, from field hockey to football and everything in between. So, but as far as Texas, I'm excited to see what they do this year. But more excited to see kind of the growth of that sport in Texas being number one.
Yeah.
Last postseason was really fun over at McComas Field. So
Yeah.
seeing if that carries over in the SEC as well. I know A&M weekend. I'm not sure where that is this year, but
They don't play A&M.
Oh well, they have a lot of.
Which is unfortunate
Yeah.
because that would have been a fun series. They play Oklahoma up in Norman
but just
late in the season.
They play almost every top 25 team. It's unbelievable looking
Yeah.
at their schedule. So it's going to be a fun season over at McComas Field
Yeah,
for sure.
it will be. They return, just about everybody from last year's national runner-up team. I've got Tegan Kavan in the circle to help lead things. Sophie Simpson's going to be there too. I mean, there's just so many people on this roster. Reese Atwood, who I'm sure is still she probably hit a home run right now. Like
She does.
that's what she does. Mia Scott's back. Katie Stewart's back. Vivi Martinez. I mean, you can just go through this entire roster. Mac Morgan's going to be back and pitch. Lolly Gutierrez. I mean, this team's loaded, and they're ready to make a run to the national championship. Just can they get by those pesky Sooners? Like that's going to be the big thing. We'll see if they can do it. But should make for an exciting time in the spring here, baseball and softball. Alrighty, well we've went on long enough, Noah. I think people are kind of getting tired of our faces.
Getting ready for the 6 p.m.
And they're getting ready to do something else. So we'll end the Horrors Report, this edition of it, right here. And so for Noah Gross, I'm Billy Gates. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.